Alright, so the building's taking on some complexity now in terms of its viewing, so to help us out with that we might set up some standard viewing angles, etc. And to do that also we'll start working with some section planes. The first section plane I'm getting, once I start working with section planes, I find SketchUp works a lot better if every single view you use has got a section plane, even if it doesn't appear to have. For example, this perspective view that we might set up in a view looking something like this, I'm still going to set a section plane up for it, but it'll be a section plane that's way high up in the air and doesn't even appear to have any effect. That way we can just turn section planes on for all of our views. We don't have to worry about switching them on and switching them off, and animations work very nice between the views if you do it like that. So to put a section plane in, just find my section tool. My section plane's up here. It looks like a little section indicator bubble on a set of documents. So I'll click that section plane. I'll come down onto the ground floor, onto the floor plane sort of area, because that's a good place to sort of start with from here, and just drop it somewhere. Don't come on to your actual model, because you can see what's happening, it's changing orientation all the time. So just come somewhere nice and flat ground out here and drop that section plane in. Now I think it's currently selected, so we can straight away go to the move tool and move. You might have to actually hover on top of the section plane and move it, and you can see how now you can move your section plane up in the blue axis direction. So for this particular perspective view, a good section plane for that is going to be one that's way high up in the sky that you don't even know is there. So I'm going to drop that section plane there. Then I'm going to establish my view of what I really would like to look at in this perspective view. I'll go back to the select tool so the section plane doesn't get in the road. So it might appear that we haven't set this section plane up for any particular reason at the moment, but it'll make life a lot easier if you still do in this view anyway, even though you don't use it. So if that happens to be a bit of a perspective view that I want there, I'll just make sure in camera view, this is where you make sure you are a perspective or parallel projection, so I am in perspective view. That looks like not a bad orientation to start with. So if I leave that there, to capture that view and be able to keep coming back to it with other set views, I'll go down to View, Animation, Add Scene. So we want to add a new scene, and we should be able to then open up the Scene Manager by right-clicking. Right-click on top of the Scene 1 tab, go to Scene Manager, and change the name of Scene 1 to Animation to Perspective. Press Enter, and we might add a couple of new scenes while we're there. So you can click Add Scene, and I want Scene 2 to be called probably Factory Floor Plan. Press Enter. Make sure you don't accidentally unclick any of these boxes here. We want all these to be included in the animation. We want all these boxes on. So I'm adding another one there, and I might call this one Section. Alright, swipe the name, change the name to Section. Press Enter. So I've created these three separate views for now. I think that might do us just for the moment, so I will close the Scene Manager. So at the moment they're all the same. We've started with perspective as being the one that we copied all the others from. Now you'll get into the habit of doing this, but just before you leave, once you've got one set up exactly as you like it, so click back into perspective view, right click and update the perspective view. So click on update to make sure that that keeps all of those settings. Now I want you to click on to the factory floor plan and orbit around out a little bit so you can see what's going on a little bit, and I want you to add a new section plane. So here's my section tool up here, a new section plane. I'm going to put it in exactly the same place as we did before, down on the ground floor plane here, and then I'm going to click move and move it up, and I'm going to, like you would expect for the cutting plane of a floor plan, I'm going to move it into about this situation here so that it's opening up through the doors and through the glass curtain walls, and leave it somewhere around about like that. Now once I get it there, you've got some ways of getting to some nice quick views, and that's these over here. I've got this one here called top view, so I'm going to click on my top view, and that gives me a nice perfect bird's eye view. But I'm going to go up to camera and change from perspective to parallel projection. That's looking nice and parallel, and then I'll zoom right in on, and then carefully panning with your shift key to pan it into the place that you really want to see it on the screen. So something like that would be a nice plan view of this building. And we've changed it to parallel projection, so everything there's quite alright. Before we leave here now, we've now changed this view here. We need to hover on top of the tab, right click and update it. So that's now updated that view. You can get the effect of what's happened now that you've updated it by clicking back to perspective and then clicking back to factory floor, and it animates between the two views. Let's go on to section now, and you'll get the idea of what's happening in a second. We'll go to section. I'll orbit out a little bit so I can see what's going on, and I'll go and pick up my section tool again. There's my section plane. Now this time I want the section to be orientated. Where's the best place to get this? We'll get an orientation. If you hover on top of this face of one of the columns, you'll get that square section orientation. So I'll click onto there. We've got a section in there. Zoom out so you can see where it went, and then click the move tool and move that section back till it's looking at the back of the building, just like that. So that's the location for that section just at the moment. So we're looking through just one simple portal frame. You'll want to then play around with the different standard views here. I think the one we're after would be the right hand side view. That'd come from the right of the building and look square on there, so yes it is. I'd then also change under camera to parallel projection, so we're not doing perspective, so we're looking at nice and square, and then zoom in, scroll in. Just be careful now not to orbit. Make sure if you use your middle wheel, make sure you are panning with your shift key, and if you ever lose that, you can go back to your right view again, click on right view and do it again until you've panned just nicely, fill up the page, get it nice and square on there, and then we can update that view too. Okay, now the other thing you'll probably want to do is, I won't update the view just yet, but you'll notice if I go back to the perspective view, you'll notice all these section planes are getting in our road. So zooming out, you can see the existence of those section planes. You can actually turn that visibility off up here. The next little tool in section planes, which is display section planes, we don't want to see them. So the section planes are there, they're active, they're doing their job, but we just don't see them. You should be able to then click back. Now that won't change the updates. That's not necessarily this button here, whether the section planes are on or off, doesn't get collected in the updating of each view. So they can stay off there now, and you can then animate between the perspective to the factory floor to the section view, and you've got a couple of standard views set up like that, and later on we'll obviously be able to do that also for the elevations. So I'll just leave it back at perspective. We'll do another save and we'll stop the video again.